Hi everyone, welcome to the second video explaining Tidepool Alpha 2. So in this one, we're going to learn a little bit more about items, how to move them, how to change them, and how to make them. So here you see three tulips. I'm going to open up the lexicon, and if I double click on one of these tulips, you're going to see that my crystal count goes up. Every item in the world has a crystal cost. You can think of it as the energy required to make the item. And when you melt it, you reclaim the energy. When you hover over an item, you'll see the name of that particular item, which is Tulip 13. And in parentheses, it's the crystal cost. So if I double click on this, you see my crystals went up to 50. If you don't already know the word, you will learn the word as well, which is useful. So it's easy to melt things really quickly. I can also cast new items by right-clicking on the word and put it where I want. So it's very easy to make a whole bunch. If I want to manipulate an item, I right-click on the item itself, and it brings up the action bar. The action bar lets me melt it more directly, which is the same as double-clicking it. I can also cast a new one right from an item, which is kind of like copying. So if I hit cast, it lets me do this without having to use my lexicon. I can also just simply move an item by clicking move, and you see that it removed what was there and allows me to move it around. Lastly, I can click edit and the item properties box pops up, and I can change things such as the scale. So if I want to make this bigger, I can change the scale to 2 and it'll make it much larger. Well, what if I want to make my own items? To do that, click on the canvas button in the story bar, and it brings up the paint canvas. Click this button to bring up the brush, and you can choose what color you want down here, and you can choose the brush size here. So I'm just going to try a little freehand heart, and click the bucket to do a paint bucket. So if I click here, it fills in up until it reaches some other paint. I can also use the eraser to erase, and this of course is dependent on the size, so if I do something bigger. If I decide I've made a huge mistake, I can click undo, and I can also click redo. If I want to clear everything, I just click this button for clear. So if I decide I want more colors than are here, I can right-click on one of these colors and pick from the full palette. So if I want this color green, for example, I can then fill that in instead. Okay, so what happens if I want to save it? I click the Keep button right here, give it a name, I'll call it Heart, and it casts the item right here. You can see it says Heart 1, and it costs 1 crystal. What if I want to change it? I right-click, and I choose Paint. Brings it back into Canvas again. So for example, I can change the color of this. One other thing I can do is add frames to a sketch. You can see it says 1 of 1. If I click the plus here, now it says 2 of 2. So if I change the fill color, for example, if I go back, you can see that I've changed. This allows me to go frame by frame. If I add another frame, let's say we'll do yellow this time, and I can go through them. This goes to the first frame, this goes to the last frame. This allows me to delete a frame. Or I can see them all together animated by pressing this play button. If I click keep now, it doesn't seem to be doing anything yet, and that's because you have to tell it what play mode that you want. Right click to bring up the action bar, and if I click touch, then anytime the mouse cursor hovers over it, it'll do the animation. The next play mode is play, which just plays continuously no matter what happens. And the last one is pause, so it simply doesn't do anything. So that's pretty much it for making your own items and manipulating them. In the next video, we'll talk about how to make stories and backdrops. Thanks for listening.